Welcome to the Back in Time podcast with Kyle and JD, where every week we jump into our DeLorean, cruise to 88 miles per hour, and travel back in time to review our favorite films. This week in episode 4, we travel back to February 17th of 1995 to review the comedy film Heavyweights, directed by Stephen Brill, written by Judd Apatow, and starring Ben Stiller. Now, before we start the podcast, I want to remind you to find us on iTunes and subscribe to our channel. It's super easy, and every time we post a new episode, it will automatically download to your device. Also, while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us grow the podcast and eventually pick up sponsors to help keep this podcast going. You can also find us on social media at Back in Time Pod. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also listen to all episodes on YouTube. Now, on to the show. Let's talk some heavyweights. Welcome to the Back in Time podcast. My name is Kyle Autry. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Justin DeSandro. Justin, what's cracking?
Not a whole lot. Glad to be back another week, another movie, ready to jump in that DeLorean and talk some heavyweights.
Absolutely. So I know you had a fun last weekend. Tell me a little bit about Chicago Comic-Con. What'd you see? What'd you do?
So absolutely had a chance to check out the Wizard World Comic-Con in Chicago. Have you been before?
I've never been to a con.
It's definitely kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like I tell people, if you've never been before, it's definitely worth checking out, seeing the people, the costumes, the energy, the smells. A lot of different smells going on. People don't necessarily wash beforehand. But, you know, it was a blast. And I had 2 impromptu celebrity run-ins. And I told you about the first. In total awe, after Comic-Con, I ran to a barbecue joint across the street. And I sat down at the bar and was having a pastrami on rye, as I tend to do at bars.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm having a drink, and behind me walks up a little pint-sized older woman complaining about how she wants a bottle of Fiji water at this bar.
Yeah.
So I turn around and just in awe, holy shit, it's Lonnie Anderson. And I look around, I swear to goodness, I look around me, and no one else gives a damn. Yeah. But she's trying to get a bottle of water, and, you know, I asked the manager later, he didn't know who she was. He thought she was just some old eccentric lady that wanted some Fiji water. So, I mean, the highlight of the story is I did sort of tap her on the shoulder, and I told her a joke. I was like, you know, they don't have Fiji water here, but they're running across the street to get it for you. Gangbusters. She loved it. So, you know, the highlight of it for me was definitely making Lonnie Anderson laugh.
That's awesome.
She looked good for 72, 73 years old, however old she was. Yeah.
Yeah, I checked out her IMDb just because I haven't seen her in years, and still got it.
Well, when I tell the story, I like to tell people she doesn't look bad. She doesn't look good, but she doesn't look bad.
Right. What was the other celebrity meet?
So this one was definitely, to me, a sort of a boner jam. And I couldn't believe that I did this, but I was walking past the autograph booths and just sort of taking in, seeing who was all there. And I stopped by Catherine Tate's booth.
Okay.
And I scratched my head and I thought, why do I know who Catherine Tate is? Have you put to who she is yet?
No, I'm trying to get on her IMDb. I'm trying to picture what she looks like. Okay. Nope. I know exactly who she is from The Office.
Punchline's coming.
Yeah.
And so she walks out of her booth. She didn't have anyone in line at the time, and she walked right past me. And I stared at her, and I was like, why do I know who you are? I was like, super excited. I was like, I should talk to her. And hours later, I was like, oh, that's Nellie from The Office. Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
I could have said something really funny.
A prime opportunity there, right through your fingers.
I couldn't believe it. I knew her, I just, was not rolling to go.
So, to drop a Clint Howard line, are we a go or no go for a Whorehound?
So I sent
Corey Feldman.
So, as you know, I sent an email. Saturday night. I sent an email to their editorial department requesting for press passes.
Yeah.
I have not heard back, but for those of you who are creepy like me, there's a Gmail app that you can download called Streak. Shout out to Streak, that lets you know when your emails are opened.
Okay.
So I know that Whorehound has opened my email twice, but they haven't responded yet.
Okay.
We can cut that if you want.
No, I think that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I got to meet Corey Feldman. He's been on my list, and he slipped through my fingers once. He was here early. He was here earlier in the year in Indy with his band, and I didn't want to pony up the dough to go watch his band, but I will pony up $120 to be the fourth member of the Goonies and get in there with Sean Astin and Q Kwan Data and get a four-way picture. So.
You're just dropping the raunchy bombs tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm taking over for Chunk in more ways than one.
So is Corey then one of your ones, like the celebrity that you would?
Oh yeah, him and Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox would be on that list for sure.
You missed. They were at Wizard World Comic Con last year. You should have gone.
It was like $200 and something to get a photo with Doc Brown in front of the DeLorean, and I couldn't get free that weekend.
It's about 10 pizzas.
That's no big deal.
What do you think about it? You just sacrifice 10 pizzas for yourself, and you get to meet Doc Brown.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. But in any event, we'll possibly have more to talk about next week when we jump into our next episode, which I won't give away quite yet. You gotta listen to the whole thing to know what we're going to review next week. Real quick, just quick thoughts on last week's episode of the Monster Squad and how you thought it went. I don't know if you listened to it back. I have to, because I have to edit it.
I definitely do like listening to our episodes and kicking myself in the teeth when I'm like, why did I say that? But, that's the beauty of podcasting. But no, I was so happy to do Monster Squad last weekend. As we know, it's both a defining childhood movie for the both of us. And it was so amazing at Comic-Con. There was so much Monster Squad art.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. That's awesome. I would have spent some money, for sure, on some Monster Squad art.
It was badass. They had the scene where they had the monsters in the swamp and the crate was coming up from the water. So I had awesome. Digitally painted that out. I'm happy to shout out his information. I got his business card.
Yeah, do it.
No, I don't have it with me. It's over there.
Ixnay on the shout out nay, I guess.
Well, ask us later. Tweet us for the info, and we'll send you his way.
And you can find us online at Back in Time Pod. We're on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/backintimepod. And coming soon, we will also be on all the other platforms, Stitcher and SoundCloud. Just trying to figure those out. But all episodes, you're either listening to this on YouTube or you are listening on iTunes. And if you're on iTunes, remember to subscribe to the channel. You get all the episodes as soon as they come up. They'll download to your phone. It also helps us grow the podcast in the process. And we appreciate you guys because we are getting bigger. We're up to 25 subscribers now, which is double the amount compared to last week. So,
hey, the more people we get, so the bigger celebrities and guests that we can get to come and join us. We don't have to just reach out on Facebook.
I'm going to check one more time. I did try to get a surprise for this week, and I don't think it came through.
Well, nope. Again, as soon as we cover a Clint Howard movie, we'll try to get him on the show.
We're go no go for launch. So let's talk some current box office. So I sent over a couple trailers. Don't know if you had a chance to watch them or not, but we've got the new teaser trailer for Super Troopers 2, which is dropping on 4/20 next year.
In the words of the immortal Homer Simpson, dope. I did not watch it yet.
That's all right. So the Super Troopers trailer is really cool. You get to see all the original cast is back. They are still calling Rook, even though it's been 15 years, which I found hilarious. Farva looks amazing, and it's going to be awesome. Just by the first 1 minute little teaser they put out, this is going to be amazing.
So, did they crowdsource funding for that movie?
They did. They raised a lot of money too. I want to say it was upwards of like $4 million or more. And then I think once they got all the crowdfunding, then they were able to get a bigger production company to come on and probably fund the distribution and marketing of the film.
I love the way that you can get films into the can, as they say.
Yeah.
Did you get in on that, Kitty? Did you put anything in that?
I'm so cheap. I did not pony up for a Mustache Ride shirt, which I should have. Yeah, I didn't pre-buy my ticket or DVD, so I will just go see it opening day and pay them back. So
I'm sure they appreciate that.
Speaking of opening day, there is absolutely nothing that I want to see this week in theater. So last week they had the worst box office since 2001, and they're predicting that it will repeat and be even worse this week. The big movie coming out is the sequel to Goon, The Last Enforcers with Sean William Scott. And, I mean, I'm guessing they don't break even $10 million with that one.
Oh, boy. I hate to admit it, but I've never even seen the first one.
It's not bad. It's a good comedy.
You've said that before. You've sold it. You've sold me on it in the past, and I've still not pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and do you like Jay Baruchel, the actor?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
He actually wrote, and I think he wrote and directed. I know he's directing. I think he wrote it too, though. He's wrote and directed this one.
Gosh, I love his TV work.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
The trailer looks good. I sent it to you. Don't. You didn't watch that one either.
The problem is you sent it to me on my phone. I looked at it on my phone and said, I'll watch this when I'm at a computer. Who the hell spends time on a computer anymore?
I guess me. So I went back just because you always call me out and say, well, what was in theaters back then? So I looked up 2001. The big release that week was the movie Glitter. Do you remember this at all? And do you know who's in that movie without cheating?
No, okay, no cheating. No, I do not. I remember the movie, do not remember who was in it.
Okay, so Glitter would $22 million budget. It made $2.5 million opening weekend. The star of the movie, Mariah Carey. And it's the only movie released that week that even cracked the top 10. They came in number 2. Number 1 was the remake of Musketeer, which was like 18 days in and was still number 1. American Pie 2 was number 3, and they had been in theaters for over a month and still holding strong. They're over like $140 million at that point, so that was a massive success. Did that weekend. And then to get back to one of our favorite movies, Jurassic Park 3 was holding strong at number 5. And they were, I think, 60-something days in the box office. So they were good, like two months in, and still making money, about $180 million at that point. So probably my least favorite Jurassic Park, but they were still pulling in the dough.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fault them for making money.
I agree. So, other than that, I did see the first review come out for it. It was a fantastic review. I don't want to give too much away, so no spoilers yet, but that is going to come out the weekend after this one that's coming up. So we're recording on Monday the 28th, so it's going to drop on September 8th. And you can bet that Heine I'll be there. First day.
So September 8th, that's the weekend of Horror Hound.
I will not be there first. Actually, if we end up going, we could go that night and watch it together and hold hands. What?
Hey, we've done worse. Actually, I think
we've done much worse. Let's leave it at that. Okay. Sultan. So let's get in some intro to Heavyweight. So again, we're traveling back to 1995 this week. Just brief description here. So Heavyweights is a 1995 American comedy drama film directed by Stephen Brill, written by Stephen Brill and Judd Apatow. That surprised the heck out of me. I did not realize this was an Apatow film. The film centers around a fat camp for kids that is taken over by a fitness guru named Tony Perkins, played by Ben Stiller. Heavyweights was filmed over the course of 2 months in North Carolina at Camp Pinnacle. So I actually looked up Camp Pinnacle. I was just curious if it was still there. It's been going strong since 1922.
Holy
and
shit.
not only can you still go there, but they actually have the Blob. They have all the stuff that you see in the movie, the zip lines, the go-karts, the tracks, everything is still there.
The Apache Relay?
I'm sure we can put it together.
Oh.
So, and you can actually, you can send your kid there for 1 week or up to 5 or 6 weeks, just to give you an idea of the cost of that. If you ever have a kid you want to send there, 5 weeks, $6,500.
Yeah, my kid's going to YouTube camp where he's just going to watch YouTube for 5 weeks.
I kind of want to go. I want to see if I can be like a counselor and get my kid in for free, just so I can hang out there. I just want to jump on the Blob. That's all.
Do you want to be the one that jumps on the Blob, or do you want to get shot up by the Blob?
Both. I want to jump on it and then get shot from it.
Absolutely.
So filming started on March 28th of 94. It finished on May 25th of 1994. Heavyweights holds a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a very good review from the critics. However, it has a fresh 78% within the community. Any thoughts on that?
Definitely, you have to trust the community on a movie like this. And we'll get into the specifics of why Heavyweights is a heavyweight for nostalgia. But no, it holds up. I was very excited after watching it.
Yep. And I went back just to find a couple like reviews and stuff. I did find one from Siskel and Ebert. That's a blast from the past. They reviewed it in 95. They gave it 2 thumbs down.
Oh,
so
damn you, Siskel.
Fuck you both. I mean, Ebert thinks the movie loses its initial wit and essentially called it 2 different movies in one. I don't know what to say to that. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that's an interesting critique on the movie, and I think it's taking a much deeper stab at it than I think is necessary, because there are some scenes that we'll discuss later that I do feel are sort of out of place.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I definitely appreciated them for what they were.
Okay. That's fair. So I wasn't able to come up with a big surprise this week, so I did look up a couple of interviews on YouTube just to get some feedback from those that were involved. So Ben Stiller was interviewed a couple of years back about his thoughts on the film. He called it a fun experience. He talked about it being at Camp Pinnacle and how he took his trainer up there. That's his best friend, and they had a blast while they were there in North Carolina. He did the movie because he had just worked with Judd Apatow on Cable Guy, and said that Disney wasn't happy with the final product, but they did a good job of marketing it anyway. Also, Apatow was interviewed this past year on the Sam Roberts Show, which is a good podcast. Shout out to Sam. And he said this is the one film that people are always surprised that he's part of, because it's a kid's movie and it's a Disney movie, and he's not really known for being a Disney type of guy. But he did echo Stiller's sentiments and just said it wasn't a typical Disney movie and they didn't know what to do with it. He didn't do one single press interview or anything for that movie. They tried to sweep it under the rug, but then ultimately they marketed it well on TV and it made okay money. So any thoughts on those two guys and their comments?
It just makes me wonder. Not that I'm suggesting that anybody remake or reboot or revamp it, but how would that movie perform today if that same cast were to come together? Ben Stiller and Apatow whether it had not been made back in the 90s, the for the first time they made it now, how would that do? How would that perform?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, in your opinion, why do you think Disney wasn't so hot on heavyweights?
I knew it was a Disney movie when I was a kid. Like,
right.
I know it's a Disney movie now. And it has, like, the framework to be a successful kids movie. Like, The Big Green was a Disney movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, just fact checking real quick before I sound stupid.
Wait, okay.
Let
me look it up. I'll fact check for us, but you keep going.
In my mind, like, Heavyweights was always a movie that sort of was along the lines of, say, The Big Green or Rookie of the Year. Movies along those calibers where they're kids' movies in a certain regard, but they're also like, almost like, where The Goonies is like this big, big, big epic adventure. Like, Heavyweights is like this small kernel adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And, I compared it to even like The Little Giants. It was like, to me, it fell along the lines of all of those movies.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think we're not to give anything away because we're going to jump into the review in a few minutes, but I mean, it ends like a Disney movie usually ends. So
true. Very true.
I can see how some of the language, though, might shy them away from it a little bit, though. There's some little things in there for sure.
It's not like it was the Monster Squad, though.
No, it wasn't. So, as far as box office goes, let's jump into that a little bit. For whatever reason, on zero of the websites that I looked on, and I tried to find it pretty much everywhere I could, there's no budget for this movie. So we don't know how much it cost. It opened in theaters on February 17th. Again, it's a Walt Disney movie. First 3 days, they grossed $6 million in about 1,900 theaters. It ranked third at the box office. Week 2, they held firm at number 3, raking in another 3.7 million. So their 10-day total at just under $11 million. The film would stay in theaters for 101 days, and total box office was $17,662,142. I imagine that they probably broke even but lost money on the marketing and then made it back in home box office sales.
Well, I mean, thankfully the big star of the show, Ben Stiller, was still recognizable back then, but not banking the way that he did later. So hopefully they were able to. Same with Keenan.
Right.
So they had some decent names on there too that I think that they were probably able to get for, Costco prices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into it in a second with the trailer, but I mean, there's some familiar faces in there from some really good Disney movies, like Shaun Weiss from Mighty Ducks and Carp, who's the lead in this character, Jerry Garner. So, I mean, I think they kind of probably cashed in on some of the success of those previous movies and probably didn't have to do a lot to convince people to come see this. But anyway, getting back to what was hot in the movie theaters on February 17th, 1995, the number one movie at the theater that week was, drum roll, The Brady Bunch.
Oh, my gosh.
I hope we don't ever review The Brady Bunch. That's a horrible movie. It's going to be an hour and a half of me shitting all over it.
We'll have to be drinking a lot for that one.
But they did bring in almost $15 million opening weekend in the first 3 days. I think their overall gross, I want to say, was like over 60, if I'm remembering it correct. I didn't write it down, but number 2 movie that week was Just Cause, Sean Connery and Lawrence Fishburne. Number 3 was Heavyweights. Number 4 is Billy Madison. Number 5, The Quick and the Dead. Number 6, Legends of the Fall. Number 7, Boys on the Side. Boy, that sounds kind of gay. Number 8, Forrest Gump, which I assume was probably like 200 days in. Number 9, Pulp Fiction, and number 10, Nobody's Fool, and lastly, number 11 was Dumb and Dumber. So not a bad collection of movies there. There's some good ones in there.
Yeah, that's a good weekend to go to the movie theaters and, sneak into one and then sneak into the next.
Yeah, I mean, skip right past Brady Bunch. So, for you, like, what's your first memory of Heavyweights? Now, is this something you think you saw in theaters, or is this a blockbuster night?
I feel like this was a blockbuster night for me, and not because I didn't want to see it in theaters. Being 10 years old at the time and being a portly, husky young man, I definitely probably had
related.
Some reservations about going to see a movie called Heavyweights about portly, young, chunky kids. So I could definitely say I understood the humor of it. Yeah. And I remember watching it as a kid. I remember watching it it came out in February. So it would have been, perfect for a slumber party movie.
Oh, yeah.
As we did back then. And I loved it. I mean, I loved the movie. I loved the kids. I obviously related to the fat kids.
Yeah.
It made me feel good about myself. It made me feel that I could do anything. And Gerald Gardner running the go-karts at the end was like a pinnacle scene of me. Yeah. Like, I was always like, yes, I can do anything now.
Yeah, for me, not to bring us down for a minute, but, my grandpa and me used to watch this all the time. He passed away, but with this, we used to go to the box office. I think they had a Blockbuster, like an off-brand type of Blockbuster, maybe box office, and we would rent it and grab a Little Caesars pizza, which is perfect for Heavyweights. And that was one of the movies, like when I stayed the night at my grandparents' house, it was Heavyweights, Camp Nowhere. We watched a lot of Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors. Like, so all those movies, even though they're different dates and some of those are older, that's kind of my memory of that movie, is just renting it over and over and over again. So,
yeah. I gotta say, you had a much different experience with your grandparents, because that movie for me was White Man Can't Jump with my grandpa.
That's amazing. Save that story for the podcast, because that is going to be a movie that we review at some point. So, now if you have any ideas of stuff you would like us to review, remember to tweet us at BackInTimePod. Use the hashtag BackInTimePod, and let us know what you want us to review next. And we'll take a look at it. Let's get into some quick casting real quick, and then we'll watch the original trailer and we'll jump into the review here. So a couple things. So this movie's directed by Stephen Brill. He's gone on to direct a lot of things over the years. Are you a fan of Stephen Brill? Do you like his movies?
I gotta say, I'm looking him up right now.
So I'll tell you this. You just watched one of his movies last time we talked. He's a Sandler guy.
Okay. Oh, Little Nicky, huh? No, I mean, Little Nicky was Little Nicky. Mr. Deeds, I loved. I think Mr. Deeds was one of the perfect movies to come out in 2002. Mm-hmm. And even Without a Paddle was pretty solid.
I love Without a Paddle. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, so with this movie, interesting, a lot of the kids that are in this movie were also cast in Mighty Ducks 2. So you've got Shaun Weiss, you've got Kenan Thompson. I don't know if Aaron Schwartz was in that, but I know Karp was in the original Mighty Ducks, which he directed as well. So he's got a lot of the kids that have come back in several of his movies around that time period. He's co-writer on this. Let's talk about Judd Apatow. He's one of my favorite writers.
He's one of those writers, producer, directors that you have to love to hate, and you have to hate to love. And he gets to do so much that you respect the hell out of his skills.
Yeah.
But you also sort of forget that he peaked in 1996 with Celtic Pride. But with all seriousness, his involvement in the TV show Freaks and Geeks, love that show. That show is amazing.
Undeclared.
Undeclared. Yes, again, there's your boy Jay talking about him, and just hilarious. And And when he sort of he had his resurgence with 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, and he did so much. Walk Hard is hilarious. I forgot he did Walk Hard.
He directed Walk Hard?
He at least wrote it.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, he it's like he did Undeclared or Freaks and Geeks 99 2000, Undeclared 2001 2002. 3 years later, he does 40-Year-Old Virgin. His career starts to take off. Knocked Up, Funny People. And these are just movies he's directed. Got a great writing staff. Star of the movie, obviously the biggest name on this list is Ben Stiller. So let's talk about Ben Stiller and a little bit about his career.
I don't know if this is going to come up later, the parallels between this movie and Dodgeball.
It's going to come up later.
We'll sit on it.
Okay. Nobody makes me drink my own blood. Nobody. All right, go ahead.
I'm trying. What was he in before this? Like directly before this?
It's Cable Guy.
Cable Guy, and then what? He was in Billy Madison.
Let's take a look.
No, he was in Happy Gilmore. Sorry.
Yeah, he's not a star of Happy Gilmore, but he's got the he's one of the nurses. You just pulled landscaping duty. Anybody else's back hurt? So he starts to get like these good little roles where I think he starts to kind of like steal the screen a little bit. So then he does a couple of TV shows. He does news radio. He does Larry Sanders. He does an episode of Friends. He doesn't really take off until '98 with "There's Something About Mary." I think that's the one that launched him.
But this is kind of his first starring role.
Oh yeah, for sure. And since it wasn't a massive hit, I wonder if that's why it took him 3 or 4 more years before he really got that next big break.
So this was 1995, and he was born in 1965. So he's 30 years old in this role. He's like our age.
Yeah.
Fuck. Instant depression.
So yeah, overall, I think he's fantastic in this. We'll talk more about him. Main central character that we're following in this movie is Jerry Garner, age 11, 140 pounds. And he's played by Aaron Schwartz, and who again was Carp in The Mighty Ducks, for those keeping score at home. What do you think of him as Jerry Garner?
Gerald Garner. I definitely related a lot to him as a kid.
Yeah.
And I like that, he plays the role very well. Obviously, I hope we talk a little bit about his dad in the movie.
We will. Sean Weiss plays Josh, one of the supporting characters. Sean Weiss, definitely famous for being Goldberg from The Mighty Ducks in all the sequels.
Goldberg!
He hasn't done much in adulthood, but what do you think of Sean Weiss in that time period, all those different movies that he did?
I think he was so much more badass in this movie. Like, I never was afraid of him as Goldberg.
No. Goldberg's a little bit of a buffoon.
In this movie, he's kind of a badass. He's been shaving for a few years. You do not want to mess with him. He's the King Cobra.
You got Kenan Thompson as Roy, who's the first person that Jerry meets on the plane. He's had an awesome career. I think he did a lot of stuff when he was a little guy, and now obviously Saturday Night Live for how long? I mean, he's been doing that show for, it feels like a decade now.
Yeah, props to him from taking his, Kenan and Kel and Snick to, he was in Mighty Ducks as well.
Yeah, number 2 and 3.
Knuckle Puck.
The Knuckle Puck.
The Knuckle Puck. And, now he's a legit comedian with a respectable career.
Yeah.
And, he was great as a kid. He was great in this movie. He's hilarious. He's the man.
It's good to see a kid actor that had a lot of success actually grow up to not be a shithead and, getting in trouble all the time. Kenan Thompson arrested at the airport, transferring a pound of blow. No, we haven't seen that from him. He stayed pretty clean and just keeps on chugging along.
I feel like that's a crack at Cal.
It's more of a crack at Sean Weiss. Next, let's talk about Pat Finley, who's played by Tom McGowan. So he's still pretty active actor. I didn't realize that he's been in as much as he's been in the last couple of years. But he's not like a star. He's kind of the background guy, but he's done some different stuff. He did an episode of Modern Family. He did the TV show called Veep. Currently, he's doing a show called The Good Fight that's out right now. I don't know if that's an ABC show. CBS. So he's on big TV now, but I thought he's awesome as Pat Finley. He plays the lovable loser to a T.
Yeah, and, he does an amazing job. He plays pretty much the same character when he's on Frasier. And
Okay.
he's hilarious on Frasier as Kenny Daly, the station manager.
Yeah.
But for the longest time in this movie, I really, really, really thought he was Gerald Gardner, age 11. His father. Like, they look like their father and son.
That's a good comparison. And then last actor there's a couple actors, but Alan Colbert, I love him as the camera guy, Kenny the camera guy.
Kenny the camera guy.
Shout out to Alan Colbert, he's awesome.
Yes.
Paul Feig, who's turned into a pretty good director,
Yes, he has.
is Tim. I never, until I saw his face at the when Ghostbusters started getting rebooted the last couple of years, I went, that's Tim from Heavyweights. He's the director from Bridesmaids. Oh my gosh. I did not put that together. But yeah, he's awesome in this. I love watching him in this movie.
He's hilarious. He pulls it together because he's so offbeat. And I love that he used to be a fat guy. And we never get to see it. We just get to see him being, Paul.
And then rounding out the cast, we have Nurse Julie, that's played by Leia Lyle, who was also in Little Nicky. She's Krista.
That I don't remember, having just watched the movie.
She has not acted since 2006, but it looks like she hasn't acted in 12 years. So not much other than a show called VIP on her resume and then a bunch of TV series.
Do you not remember VIP?
No, I don't. Oh, that's Pam Anderson. Yeah, I'm seeing that now, but I probably just watched it for her and didn't really pay attention to the story.
Did you not remember Sunday afternoons? VIP was on like WPN and UPW like nonstop, man. I mean, probably somebody once told me. I don't know for sure.
Okay, Lonnie Anderson, stalker. Let's move into the actual review here. We'll just jump right into it. So, opening scene, we start zoomed in on a clock. It hits 3 p.m. The hallways fill with a bunch of excited kids. School's out for summer. And we have our first shot of Jerry, who misses the bus and says that's a great way to start the summer, and starts chasing the bus. Any thoughts on this opening scene and your first look at Jerry?
Gerald Gardner, age 11. I'm going to do that every time, just so you know.
That's fine.
Gosh, I always thought that is just how schools operate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was always so confused at the end of my own school years when the last day of school would come and you just calmly shuffled out of the school.
Right.
There was no riots. Where are the riots?
The only one I ever had in my school was senior year. Everybody was just ripping stuff up and running out. And they were playing Time of Your Life by Green Day over the loudspeaker. People were crying. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
This is so bizarre.
What was that, 2004?
Yeah.
Yeah, different world, man.
Yep. So there's a couple of funny scenes on his way home, since he has to walk home after he misses the bus. He gets to the baseball field and he can't seem to throw a ball over the fence. So right away we start to see some foreshadowing here where he's not a good athlete. And that's not going to bode well when they have to go up against Camp MVP.
from a writing standpoint, and, I don't know who wrote this scene necessarily, but it so just amazingly establishes how fat, sloppy, and unathletic Gerald Gardner is.
Yeah. I agree.
It's just so painful to watch him try to throw the ball over the fence and not be able to do it. But you learn so much about him. You learn, 1, he can't throw. 2, he's super self-conscious. And 3, he's determined. He doesn't give up.
That's a good point. Now, next we're going to see him just guzzle down some lemonade, slaps down, it's $0.25 or $1, I don't remember, and then he just takes the whole pitcher and just starts drinking the whole thing.
And the little girl calls for her mom because of it. It's like, bitch, he paid for it. That's his lemonade.
That's true. Yeah, 10 cents a cup. That's at least 10 cups. So he's in the right. I got his back.
Yeah, that girl was just a little Phoebe the Feed.
Yeah, that's true. So he gets home. He notices a car in the driveway, kind of like furrows his brow a little bit, like, what's going on here? And he walks in and asks mom and dad if somebody dies. And, and then he sits down, and we get our first shot of Mr. Garner, played by the great Jeffrey Tambor. Pop. Let's talk about Jeffrey Tambor and your first shot of him. I love Jeffrey Tambor, so.
Pop gets a treat. And no, it's so weird that he looks older in this than he does in Arrested Development in the first season.
Right, that mustache adds about 20 years.
Easily.
So.
And then he's meeting with Tim Blake Nelson.
Yep.
So, as an adult, this seems sort of like a wet dream. You're like, oh my goodness, look at all these amazing actors in one scene. And, I mean, TVN does a great job of delivering. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes if you're going to.
No, you're good.
Him, but Jeffrey Tambor, he carries so much power as a dad, and, it carries on to his later scenes, and I don't want to spoil, what he does to. Mm-hmm. But, he's a good dad.
Yeah.
He wants the best for his son, Gerald Gardner.
So we watch the Camp Hope promotional video. We see the blob. We see the go-karts. I mean, how much, as a kid, how badly did you want to go to this camp?
It made me feel okay to be fat.
Yeah. Until I saw the prices, I was in. I would have gone tomorrow not for $6,500 though. So it's kind of funny. He at the end he finds out it's not just a fun camp. It's a weight loss camp, and he tells his dad he doesn't want to go hang out with a bunch of fat loads. And then his dad says, "You're going to think about going." He goes, "You're fatter than I am. Why don't you go to the camp?"
I felt so bad for Jeffrey there.
Yeah,
because as you get older as a man, your weight tends to shift. It's natural.
So he tells his parents he's going to put his foot down. He's not going. Of course, in the next shot, he's on an airplane, packed and going. And we see a stewardess. She gives him a pennant on his jacket. It's a set of wings. We'll get into the wings later. Next, we meet Roy, played by Kenan Thompson. He immediately asks him if he's going to fat camp, which Jerry replies with, "No, why do you say that?" Well, because you're fat.
Because you fat.
Yeah, you're fat. That's your dad? Why you say that? He's fat too.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So they get off the plane. Jerry and Roy meet a group of guys. They're all standing there waiting to go to the camp. And we see Pat coming in on the bus. He said he's looking for several portly adolescents. What did you think of the Pat scene and just seeing all the guys for the first time? There's a whole group of them.
Well, it was so crazy because I was like, the guy on the bus looks like the guy from the video. And sure enough, you might remember me from the video. And I was like, I do. It was like Creed Bratton when he's like, that's how I know you, from the parking lot.
Pat asked Jerry a real serious question. Are you ready for the best damn summer of your life? And at that point, I'm sold. I think it is going to be the best summer of his life. And we see they get loaded up. They start driving down the road. I love the scene where they start getting up near the McDonald's and Taco Bell and the Burger King, and they start telling him to turn in, and he fake turns but doesn't go. That just cracks me up because we got a bus full of fat kids. They wanted some fast food.
Gosh, it's like an Olivet Nazarene football trip stopping at Cinnabon.
Is it Harrison's birthday again? Okay.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, you see, they're all excited about entering Camp Hope. If I'm a kid on that bus, I mean, I'm really excited as well. Next, we're gonna meet Counselor Tim. He's a skinny guy, but he kind of gets made fun of for being skinny. He used to be fat, but lost his weight. So,
can we say he needs to get made fun of for those jean shorts and that Carolina Panthers jersey?
Whew. Those were some short shorts. Now I know why he always wears suits.
Hey-o.
Scarred him for life. Or maybe now he's a never nude.
I think there's a connection to be made that we will have to investigate.
We also meet Nurse Julie, and she comes up to Pat and asks where the infirmary is, and Pat cannot talk. He's pretty much taken back by her. Roy comes up to Pat and says, "You've been coming here since you were 10, and you don't know where the infirmary is? What are we going to do with you, Pat? Come on, man." Next scene, we meet Josh. So we've got Goldberg, our first sighting here. So he's basically a camp legend, as Roy explains. He immediately nicknames Jerry Captain because of his wings.
So it's so cool because, you know Goldberg, you're ready for Goldberg, you see Goldberg, and it's such like a Godfather type scene where he's the godfather of the Chipmunk Cabin.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool, it's almost such an adult reference to like those different types of, mob movies that came out throughout the 80s and then early 90s, like Godfather and Goodfellas and all that. And, you have Goldberg as the man.
Yep. The man. Like WCW's Goldberg?
Or Gilbert.
Gilbert was awesome with his little mini pyros.
They were just sparklers.
And then he would choke on the smoke from them. So Jerry thinks he's being sneaky because he brought in a couple snacks. But Josh immediately turns and yells, "Chipmunks, download!" And we have a montage of just candy everywhere. People are pulling it from underneath their shirts. You have the English kid that had the chocolate all melted all over his stomach, which I thought was hilarious because they all attack him. And then one of the kids goes, he holds his stomach and goes, "This can't be sanitary." So
it's not. What do you think is worse, melted chocolate stomach or salami back?
Yeah, salami Sam.
I don't know that I would eat salami that had been roasting in between Salami Sam's fat rolls.
The next shot, we have the Blob. So, honestly, I've spent the last 22 years of my life wanting to jump on that damn thing and get thrown from it into the water. So, at some point, that just has to happen for me. But
so we just need a Kickstarter to get $6,500 and send Kyle to Fat Camp.
Hey. And I could just go for a week. It's a lot less money. I literally could be done in that place in 10 minutes. I go on the Blob, you jump off, I go in the water, we go home.
I'm sold. I'm donating a quarter.
There you go. Well, I appreciate that. So, after the Blob, they sit down in the cabin hall, I imagine, cafeteria area, and we see the owners. Are both of these parents, are they both Ben Stiller's real parents? I know the guy, obviously,
Jerry Stiller is.
Jerry Stiller is definitely his dad. I thought his mom was an actress too. I just figured it was her, but she has a different last name.
We'll just assume it is for the sake of neither of us have fact checked it.
And if it's not, Ben, if you're listening, we apologize if it's not your mom.
Yeah, seriously, feel free to call us and yell at us, and no big deal.
And we'll put you on the show. And exploit you for money. They are sad to announce that they are no longer the owners of Camp Hope. And this is kind of a bummer, but I guess one of the lines I like from Jerry Stiller, he goes, "Sometimes in life, things don't work out the way you planned, and in those situations, you file
Chapter 9, bankruptcy. He starts crying.
You forget. It's so amazing that the both of them, Ben and Jerry, are both really good actors.
Oh, they are. Yeah, for sure. So this is a kind of a crushing scene for a lot of the campers. They're really down. They ask for one final hiya. They don't really get much in return. And
it's
then
very lazy.
The lights go out, the music comes on, and we meet Tony Perkins. So what are your first thoughts of seeing Tony and the Perkis system?
As an adult, I respect the hell out of the Perkis system. I'm down with it. I get it.
Yeah.
As a kid, you son of a bitch. He is frightening. He is an amazing villain.
Yeah.
Even though, we later, he disagrees. The villain was over the top. But no, I think it was pretty spot on there. Yeah,
and the campers just look mortified, which is just hilarious watching their faces. Tony says that being an only child and being educated by private tutors his whole life, he's looking forward to interacting with children for the very first time.
That's such a great throwaway line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that just sums up his character. Like, he's so awkward because he's never been around these kids in his entire life. He lets the campers know he's not going to give them the light. He's going to show it to them. Do it to it, Lars. And we get our first glimpse of Lars. Tony also mentions at age 12 he weighed 312 pounds. So essentially he was like 2.5 Gerald Garners. So he was a big boy at age 12. But now he eats success for breakfast with skim milk. Another great throwaway line.
It's so funny if the movie were made today, it would be with almond milk or coconut milk.
Oh, but,
yeah. Skim milk was the 90s equivalent.
I need it with gluten-free. Yeah. It would be a lot different for sure.
With mad milk.
The next scene we have Lars. He's reassigning Pat out of the chipmunk cabin that he's been going to for the last 18 years. Pat's not happy. Lars doesn't really care. Tells him to take it up with Tony and then throws the bag right in his gut. Thoughts on Lars and his character here and kind of our first glimpse of him?
Well, I remember Lars being like 40, 50 years old. And while watching it as an adult, being like, Lars is like 18? I remember him being so much older.
Yeah. Lars tells the boys he has a severely deviated septum and to not be alarmed. And then in the next scene, you just hear him snoring like a chainsaw.
Yeah, it's a Little Nicky type reference.
And it's funny when they show the kids sleeping and they're all just completely wide awake. And then we have Tony on the speaker telling them that this camp is going to be filled with a bunch of skinny wieners. Would you like to take the next line?
Say skinny wieners?
So we have an exercise montage next. Now, here's one thing, and this is, I guess, the first time that I saw the connection between Tony and the dodgeball character. So I don't know if you caught this or not, but if you look in, it's kind of weird because there's a bunch of little boys around. But just like in dodgeball, he has the crotch area blown up as he's doing the side-to-side slides, and his whole crotch is just blown up. So weird. Next, we have the campers weighing in. Jerry weighs 140 pounds. Roy weighs in at 160. And then they have Sims weigh in, and he's told, "Congratulations, you're the fattest kid in camp." And they cheer him.
Yeah, it's like a college football, pregame weigh-in. Yeah. Harrison Brewer, you were the fattest kid on the offensive line.
The next shots we have they're taking their before and afters. Lars is telling them to put their fat finger down, and then Roy bends over and puts one on his ass, and then Lars breaks his camera.
I love that his camera breaks and Lars gets so frustrated.
You broke my camera! Like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was not bad.
That was good. Yeah, I liked it.
Next, watch out for Salami Sam. He cannonballs into the water. Lars sees Nurse Julie and pushes a kid into the water, which cracked me up. Actually, 2 kids. And then he goes over and asks for a deep tissue massage.
He's just so casually, yeah, I'd like a deep tissue massage, yeah.
Do you think he dorked her at any point?
No, but he wanted to.
Okay. He also has him on the buddy system. I always thought he said body. But I think
that's
it's
the
buddy.
joke.
Buddy! 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 It works.
No, I think it is the buddy system, but I mean, it's so funny because she just can't understand what he's saying.
Right.
Which makes it so, like, practical slapstick comedy when you just pull in a German foreigner.
Yeah. We have Camp MVP arriving to take on Camp Hope in a friendly baseball game, or basically a slaughtering of the teams. I tried to add up the score real quick as I was watching it because they showed the chalkboard, and it was at least like 80-0 in the 6th inning. So it was a beating. I love the part where Pat gets called on the speaker to bring a mop and plunger and report to the men's toilets.
Report to the men's toilet.
Poor
bring
Pat.
a plunger.
Poor Pat.
It is, but you know what? That's a good point because he's a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
The best job he can get is summer fat camp worker. What does he do the rest of the year?
To quote Papa at the end of the movie, God, what the hell you been doing with yourself?
Yeah. But he gets the girl. Oh, no. Oops, spoiler alert.
Rewind. We got the montage of the baseball game. Again, they're getting destroyed. They're going to the doctor left and right. Nurse Julie wants to know what's happening. One of the kids in glasses, I don't actually ever catch his name, but he just says, we're Perkisizing. And then he walks out of the nurse room and gets hit in the head with a baseball. Next, we've got the scene where Tony finds their secret stash of food. He gives Roy a hug, and then midway through the hug, he goes down to his pant leg and pulls out a thing of Pez and goes, my man's packing.
I always wondered, like, even, years ago to now, he unloads the ammunition.
Yeah, that's hilarious to me, too.
Does he get the Pez dispenser back? What's more important, the dispenser or the Pez? It's like a chicken and the egg.
I'm guaranteeing those kids ate the Pez off the floor. 100%.
I've eaten Pez off the floor.
Yeah, there's no 10-second rule there.
What's a Pez?
Dawson sells them out here. Do you remember the Dawson character from another movie?
I don't.
Let me give you a hint. Funky butt lover.
Funky butt lover. Oh, so
he's the friend from Rookie of the Year.
Good for him being in 2 movies.
There you go. So he sells them out, says he was a chipmunk last year, and he shows good old Uncle Tony where the stash is at, and they clean him out. So, and then after that, we have Tony trying to get Jerry to tell them where everything's, basically trying to get him to explain who's behind all this, and he's interrogating him. Josh kind of steps in to save the day, and he drops the Seymour Butts line. How many times in middle school do you think you use the Seymour Butts line?
About 4 to 7 times a week for 4 to 7 years.
Yeah, easily.
I still do it at work.
Nobody's seen more butts than you, Uncle Tony. Next day, Josh has disappeared from the camp. I assume he was kicked out in the middle of the night. We have to assume because we just see an empty bed the next day and they're all in their pajamas. So I assume they took him in the middle of the night, kicked him out. We have a hilarious montage where the campers are trying to spread their own rumor of what actually happened to Josh. The one thing I wrote down is the cafeteria guy that serves the food says, well, he's dead, as he's smoking a cigarette. So we have no idea what's going on with Josh, but according to the Sloppy Joe guy, he could be dead.
It definitely, and I know this came after, but it reminded me of Wet Hot American Summer, which, is 6 years younger than Heavyweights, which is so crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I wonder what kind of comparisons maybe they pulled from heavyweights for that movie.
Possibly, I could see that for sure.
Did you watch, real quick, did you watch any of the new Netflix series?
You know what? I haven't watched the original in so long. I'm gonna buy it before we review it because I know that's going to be an episode one day, and then I'm gonna go back and watch all the Netflix stuff.
I like it. I like it, Max. I like it a lot.
Next, we have Jerry writing to his grandmother. He's talking about how they disable the go-karts. They pop the blog. There's a part where you see him calling his dad, and Mr. Gardner says, "I didn't send you to camp for go-karts." Or to go-kart camp.
I'm laughing at you for you said they popped the blog.
Blob. My bad. So, I just thought, this is, we'll get into later on, do these letters make it to Grandma? We'll find out. But Jerry's not happy.
Why? Whoa, no. We're still on his, why is he writing a letter to his grandma?
He says in the letter that he's tried to call home and nobody cares. So that's why he's writing her the letter.
So he doesn't have a grandpa, he doesn't have an uncle, he doesn't have friends. He's got no one but grandma.
Fat kids don't have a lot of friends, man.
Solidarity.
Okay. So the next scene, I always love this part where they're you just hear them start yelling, and then they start chasing the cows in the pasture, yelling for beef. So, and that kind of leads into the dance, where we've got the room pretty much split. The boys are on one side, the girls are on the other. Tim says, "Sugar-free punch, this bites." Tim's not happy with the party. One girl walks over. They all think she's going to ask him to dance. I love where Salami Sam sprays his mouth with the fresh breath, and then she just asks where the bathroom is. But they all thought they were getting a dance. And then finally, Tim's had enough, and he just starts dancing in the middle, and eventually Pat joins in, and then everybody else joins too. So, what was your favorite part of the dance scene watching this back?
I'm going to go ahead and say watching Lars dance on the stage.
Yes. That's exactly what I have too. Lars dancing on the stage is the best part. Tony comes in and breaks up the party here. One song in.
Cock block.
And then he tells Pat and Tim to put the fruit trays away. The bugs are out.
It's such like a mortifying line. It's almost like it's out of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Put the fruit trays away. The bugs are out.
So after that, we're on the go-kart course, and Jerry's sitting there on the broken down go-kart with no engine anymore. And we see Pat walk up, and Jerry asks Pat if the camp has always stunk this bad. And Pat said he used to suck very little. And we've got a kind of emotional scene here, I guess, a little bit, where Jerry tells Pat, "I'm so slow, and it would have been cool to go fast and really fly, And the whole time I'm thinking didn't they say we could fly in Mighty Ducks too? So Jerry does a lot of flying in the 90s with his character. But this is cool. Pat stands up. He pushes him around the track. Nurse Julie kind of watches on. She might have a thing for Pat. Don't know yet. What do you think of this scene here between these two guys? Because it's their first of several, kind of one-on-one scenes.
Yeah, it's definitely a heartwarming scene, which, as a kid, I always forgot that that's not his dad.
No.
I really thought that was his dad for the longest time because it's such a warm and loving scene. And then it's funny, too, because they get to the end of the track and he's too fat and old to go for another round.
He does have a real subtle line in there where he says, "Let's do it again." And I can't remember if he says maybe next week or maybe tomorrow or something like that, or next year.
Well, how about you silence your phone when we are recording?
I just am doing that now. If I can squeeze it in there, but I owe everybody listening a beer. That's what Stone Cold Steve Austin does on his podcast. His cell phone goes off. I owe you a beer.
I accept that.
Give me a hell yeah. Anyway, so next scene here, we have Josh. He's back. He acts like he's brainwashed. And Josh, now good. Must be good to see my big ass again. And he's back.
Okay, admit it. You tried to pull that prank during a sleepover on your friends.
Oh, every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And he explains his dad's a lawyer, and they tried to send him home with a refund, so Tony caved quick when it came to the money part. So now, is it? I don't know if any of the Disney movies prior do we hear the word ass. And maybe this is what gets into they don't know what to do with this movie because they got this dark character and they're saying ass, and Jerry's got a 37-year-old friend that pushes him around on go-karts. Any thoughts on that, or am I grasping for straws?
I think they say ass in Pinocchio.
And if you're making that up, your nose is going to grow.
No, I mean, I get it. You know, I've never been to summer camp.
Yeah.
But there has to be a level of gritty, unity that comes from the campers.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe me, watch the movie Sleepaway Camp.
Okay.
Stick around to the ending. And, have pleasant dreams.
We got Josh shaving next. He tells Jerry he's been shaving for a while now. And tells him first, when he left, he went to Sizzler and closed the place. Which cracks me up. And he asked how the supplies are on this end. They explain that Tony cleaned them out. And they devise a plan to break into Tony's cabin when he goes for a run. So I assume it's to find their candy. They don't actually explain why they're breaking in. Doesn't matter, though.
It doesn't matter, but it doesn't make sense.
No. So once they get in there and we see Tony go for the run, Jerry uncovers a big poster board with him on top of Tony's shoulders, and he's skinny. So he's already planning to sell that infomercial. And they also find the letters that they were all writing home, too.
Well, I just love that Tony has the same Photoshop skills that we have for the mock posters that we come up with.
I should screenshot that and put our face in those two shots there. For the Perkis system. Should. I'll find it online. That's a good idea. Tony starts coming back quick, and they start to scramble, put everything back. Jerry goes back to find Nicholas, and upon trying to lift him through the window, he catches a little whiff of that English butt, and he farts right in his face.
Why would you call it his English butt? That makes it sound so much more dirty. But that's another example, though, of what you're saying, is that's not very Disney-like.
No.
Although Goldberg is known for farting.
Yeah. Goldberg! What? It wasn't me! My best Goldberg. My favorite part, though, is when Tony starts walking into the room because he hears something, and he stops and looks left and then just goes and sniffs the air. That part cracked me up.
I almost feel like that was completely improvised by Ben Stiller. He just, he knew that somebody would have farted. He knew the scene, and he walked in and just like a total White Goodman.
Yeah, and knowing how Judd Apatow does it, probably a lot of that stuff he does is improvised. That's why actors like working with him. So they run the safety. Jerry hears a rapper in the middle of a conversation. He goes, "Rapper." Such a fat kid.
Rapper. I hardly even know her.
That's nice. So yeah. So they find the kid with the glasses. I don't know what his name is in this, but he's sitting on the toilet and has a big old cheeseburger in his hands. Tells him he can't tell anyone where he got it, and then we just have a montage next of everybody going to this cutout tree in the forest and dropping off money, and then it's Dawson, the one that sold them out, who's now profiting off of their binge eating.
always was so concerned to where they're getting so much money from. Where are they getting that money?
Yeah. That's a good point. I assume that they went to the camp with some money. I think they're just, what's a cheeseburger in 1995? Like $2. So,
but so props to Dawson for setting up this huge contraband ring. He's like the mastermind villain. He's the one that rats them out.
Yeah.
He gets all of their supplies out of there. He probably was amazing at dope wars on his T-85 calculator. He kills all of the supply and then creates the demand and recreates the supply. He's a fucking genius.
He is. I love that Pat makes a trip out there too. And
he got so much food.
He gets several bags of burgers. We've got weigh-ins next to check the progress. The first kid's 2 pounds over, and then Tony says, well, muscle weighs more than fat. Next up, Jerry Gardner, aged 11. And you just see him keep tipping the scale over. He gains 9 pounds. Tony tells him to turn off the camera, and the Perkis system doesn't work with cheaters like Gerald Garner. How can I sell an infomercial about fat kids if you can't keep your piggy little snout shut? Roll camera. He just comes right back on. And then the best part of the scene is where he calls Josh up and goes, get on the scale, son. Get off the scale.
Just waiting for it. It just sticks with you. Get on the scale. Get off the scale.
And then he starts talking to himself, which is so... It makes his character even more crazy. He's socially awkward. He's talking to himself in the second voice. How you doing, little Tony? Good.
And the comparisons between that and then Dodgeball then really start to come out when you realize that he definitely has a personality disorder.
Yeah.
He's got some issues, and he's definitely filling that void of overcoming his fatness by, being addicted to fitness.
I'm picturing the scene where he was stuffing the cookie down his pants, and Michelle walks in. Can't you knock, Michelle?
Heads up, I'm at 4% on my phone.
Oh, dear God. Okay. Tony says tomorrow anyone who misses their weight loss goal is going to be on a 20-mile hike. Pat stands up, and Tony just embarrasses him in front of everybody. Again, you got to feel bad for Pat here. He's trying to help the kids, and Tony just says, why would we listen to you? Look at you. What do you know? How do you feel about Pat in this scene?
I gotta say, I'm on the side with Perkis in this, because why would they listen to Pat?
Right.
In all honesty, you've got this group of kids who've been encouraged to cheat at their diets. Gerald Gardner somehow gained 9 pounds?
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight to gain. And now you got their fat friend's going to stick up and say, no, it's totally okay. It's like, no.
He actually says it's not very healthy to go for a 20-mile hike.
A 20-mile hike. Come on.
And then we've got the next scene where Pat's sitting on a dock by himself. He's kind of looking at Camp MVP across the water. Jerry walks up behind him. So this is another good moment between these two characters here. Pat mentions Camp MVP's having a barbecue and tells Jerry that just once he would like to know what it's like to be one of those guys and to score a winning touchdown. And Jerry says, you don't want to be one of those guys, they're jerks. And it's just, this is another good scene for these guys, and it starts to build their connection between the two of them. And they start devising a plan, and Pat tells Jerry he has to be the leader, and he's going to take care of business on this end, and he's got to get these guys through the 20-mile hike.
So I definitely think this scene is definitely just Apatow at the core of his character development abilities. And it's another great scene between two characters where I think, when we talk about misplaced beats, it doesn't fit with anything else. It makes it that drama that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Because there's a lot of development that you realize because, the kid is going to become the adult, and they both lack the confidence to get the girl. like it's a complete mirror of one another. That it's like it fits perfectly into, say, Knocked Up. If they had Jonah Hill in it, was Jonah Hill in it?
Yeah, he's in Knocked Up. Yep. So next we start the hike. I always find it funny. I don't know if I ever caught this before, but Tony tells Lars to hightail it back to camp, which always makes me laugh for some reason. Roy tells Josh somebody's going to die today, and Jerry starts taking the leadership right away and keeps the English kid, I can't think of his name off the top of my Nicholas. Keeps him from falling into this big old hole. So he pretty much saves his life there. And basically, when Jerry starts taking leadership, one of the guys falls down, and Tony says, "Stragglers must be left to fend for themselves. I know I was." He's deep. He's got some stuff going on.
He's a deep character, and he's written in such a way that it's not forced down your throat to know what happens to him, but you want to know more.
Yeah, definitely.
He's a Shakespearean villain.
Mm-hmm. Next, Pat and Tim and Nurse Julie are back at the camp. They're trying to devise a plan. The camera guy walks up and says, "Have you seen Tony? That guy owes me $600. And this is right after Pat basically says, "We have no options." And we see the camera guy come up, and he's unpaid and unhappy. And they've got a lot of footage. So, now, next scene is Tony doing some yoga or Tai Chi. Tells them that he's going to extend the hike indefinitely until they all hit their weight loss goal. So he's going to keep them up there until they all shrink, which is nuts because they have no food. So any thoughts on Tony just starting to lose his mind here?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. He's definitely losing his mind. He's losing his grip on reality. He's losing his business empire. He's not in control at all, which is so like the comparison of, how these fat kids aren't in control of their own eating habits.
Yeah.
He's no better than they are.
Yep. And the one kid said they just want to have fun, and Tony said, "You want to see fun?" And he runs and jumps off the ledge and does a pull-up on this branch and tells Sam to join him. Sam goes, "Yeah, be right there." Salami Sam. Crazy. Then when they get back, Tony said it would be, or actually, lost my spot here. 1 second. I'll cut all this out. So they tell Tony they need some rest. Tony says that's a good idea. Let's take 1 hour for meditation. And as he's meditating, they start devising their plan here. So he kind of comes to, he starts hearing like a lot of commotion. And they ask Tony to settle an argument. Is it possible to do a sit-up without being able to see or hear? And Tony's happy to put this one to rest. There's a lot of mystery about the abdominal muscles.
He is very happy to put it at rest, and it's another Sleepaway Camp reference. They do something similar in that horror movie. Again,
Really?
Check it out. Sleepaway Camp, stay till the ending.
What do you think of the part where Josh puts his butt in his face, and then we have the chase here where they lead him down the hill and drop him into the pit?
I gotta say, I'm pretty uncomfortable anytime there are children nude. So I'm not a fan of the scene. I do not want to see child butt.
Right.
So, again, not very Disney-esque.
No.
But that
you don't really see anything. I mean, he could have just pulled out his pants and he's got underwear on. We don't know. Which I'm sure. Yeah, we don't want to know. I don't want to see that ass anyway. And then Josh, back to the campground. We've got Kenny, the cameraman, wanting more money. So Pat's not sure if they're going to be able to afford it now. But he's come up with a plan of their own. At this point, Jerry comes in and he says, that they have a plan of their own and leads them into the woods. Julie says she has a bad feeling. And we get into this, what would you call this thing? Where he's being kept. It's a big, giant, just like shed, or
it's like a Lord of the Flies prison.
Password Yankee Doodle, and that'll get you in. And we see Tony all strapped to the chair, and he's gagged. Pat tries to help him, but to everybody else wants to leave him there, but Pat thinks it's a bad idea. You can go to jail for things like this. And then Tony smarts off and he gags him back again.
How did they pull that off? Like that little jail cell that they have, they've got the electricity going on. Nicholas is making the queen proud.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of what they did is just definitely cinematically cool. And as a kid, you want that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's you almost feel sorry, almost, for Tony.
And we start to see Pat come into his own. He tells Tony he was going to help him, but now he's going to take him down. So, good for Pat. They also tie Lars to the tree and pour honey all over his chest. And this is just hilarious because the next part is where he says, "Help me, I have candy." And you think Nicholas is going to come back and get the candy, but he just punches him in the nards.
And the Wolfman dork.
Yeah. And then you hear Lars scream a couple seconds later, and they think he's actually getting attacked by a bear, which they told him, like, jokingly, that's what the honey was for. But it's just a baby deer licking him.
See, that part always confused me because best case scenario, they're going to leave him out into the woods to die.
Yes.
Worst case scenario, they're going to leave him out in the woods to get mauled by a bear.
Yeah. A little dark.
A little bit.
A little dark for Disney. I can see they're starting to loosen their ties a little bit watching this in their board of directors room.
Walt's frozen head is spinning.
Yeah. Next, we just have basically taking over the camp. They're taking down all the Perkins signage. Jerry's voiced over on a boombox next, telling Tony he's a loser, that he has a skinny wiener, has no friends. And then Tony tries to get out and gets electrocuted.
I think the kids, and I get that that's the point, that like the way that the pendulum swings, but the kids go way too far.
Yeah.
Again, it's another Lord of the Flies things where it's like who's in control makes the rules. But how are you going to come at him and call him a loser? Like, every self-defeat that they have felt at his hands has come from him attacking them personally. And so they turn it right around and attack him.
By all accounts, we don't know that Tony has a skinny wiener. So, I mean, in every movie, he blows up his crotch.
I can't say boo.
Yeah. Next part, we have a party ensuing. There's a giant bonfire. There's fireworks. There's music. You see just a ton of pizzas being brought in. 6-foot sandwiches. The one part that I find always funny is Pat wants to go down there and check it out, but Nurse Julie doesn't want him to go. But he so badly wants to go down there and just pig out like the rest of them.
But he's got some self-control. But this is the scene that, struck me for the first time as an adult watching it. And the song that's playing is like straight out of A Clockwork Orange. It's just madness.
Yeah.
It is just insane what's going on down there. The amount of food, the gluttony, the food lust that they're doing. They've got the fire roaring. Tim is a living s'more. It's insane.
So the next part, they're not going to leave Lars out there to get eaten by a bear. So they come up and the funky butt lover kid says, "Guess what? We found out since you don't have a job, you're going to get deported. So you're either with us or you're against us." And we have Lars say, "I'm with you. I love you." And they free Lars.
So what you're trying to say is that you are pro-Trump.
Too
soon?
No. So next we've got Camp MVP watching on binoculars. This line cracks me up. I thought they were on diets.
I have to tell you a story of one time I went camping and I drank 6 cans of Pepsi.
Ooh.
And then I threw up.
That's a lot of pop.
And I think that they're cheating. Cap MVP is right.
That kid's 100% on it. We have a shot of Tony screaming, "Good God, can anyone hear me?" That made me laugh. The next morning, everyone's passed out. You hear a fart, and Nicholas says, "Excuse me." Like he's ripped another one. A little tart. Pat grabs a microphone. Time to wake up, children. And the lesson we've learned here, Roy says, is don't put Twinkies on your pizza. That's a good lesson. You should never do that.
I once put peanut butter on my pizza.
That could work. What other toppings were on it?
It was a frozen pizza.
That's horrible then. That doesn't work at all.
I saw it on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That was on Ninja Turtles, you're right. Not bad. Pat starts to give a little bit of a speech here. Says we need to get healthy for ourselves. We need to take control of this camp. But before we do that, we've got to take control of our own lives. Now, who's with me? Who wants to do this thing right? And of course, his right-hand man, Jerry's the first to stand up, and everybody else follows. So, another scene between Pat and Jerry. The love fest continues.
Father and son.
Yeah. They have a power walk next, and we also have a little scene where Nurse Julie's teaching them about healthy food. That's a good start. So she's teaching them how to cook. Tony continues the pace in his cell. We see some cars pulling up to the campground next. Jerry goes out to meet his parents. His dad says, "Hey there, big guy." And then in the next breath, he goes, "He hasn't lost a pound." It's okay because he feels great. So,
but he's not happy.
No.
Maury is not happy.
No, Maury's not happy. Nicholas brings Tony some food. Tony tells him not to be frightened. He's a beaten man. Pat stands up in front of the parents and said, "You probably recognize me from my promotion in the Camp Hope video again."
That's where we know him from, the video, right?
That's where we know him from, yeah.
I thought he looked familiar.
They've redone the Camp Hope video a little bit here, and it comes up and it says Camp Hell, and we see the blob or the blog getting popped, and the parents start to see what's been going on. So these phone calls home, they weren't making this stuff up. Tony is getting a little antsy in his containment area, and he uses a fork to turn off the electric fence. Which kind of looks like a mosquito thing. You ever see those things that you hang up and they kill mosquitoes?
A bug zapper?
Would that do a whole fence, though?
Apparently. It kept Tony at bay.
That's true. He makes a fake Hershey kiss and lures Nicholas in. Next, we've got Josh eating a dead rat, which is something they added in, which was a nice touch.
It was a nice touch.
Yep. Tony grabs Nicholas by the head and then appears in the rafters in the next shot. He must have got in through the open window. He blames the parents for all their problems he's been experiencing. Jerry says he must be stopped. And Tony starts slamming glass on the ground and stepping on it. He calls out Jerry, and then Maury punches him in the gut and tells him, "You're through."
He just lays down the law. I love it because
you were through here.
You think Gerald Gardner's dad is an asshole.
Yeah.
You're through here. No, he just throws a punch right to the gut. Doesn't even blink an eye.
Yep. Then he karate chops Maury in the back of the neck, but then does a bunch of flips, back handsprings, and then knocks himself out on the wall.
And that's the end of him.
And that's the last shot of him is being taken out to the car by probably the people that work for his dad. Who knows? His servants. And he tells everybody not to freak out and call their lawyers. They're all going to get a refund. But Jerry says they don't want a refund. They want to stay here. And Pat stands up and says he'll do it. After he tells Papa he's been there for 18 years, and he says, "Good God, what have you been doing with yourself?"
Can we just talk for a moment how Papa is just from Starsky and Hutch? Do it. Jack and Coke, do it.
Oh my gosh, that's it. he's just recycled these characters, hasn't he?
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
I always like the Owen Wilson line. Yeah, do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Get your own line. Hey, the full-size towels are up there, buddy.
All the cops eat at Pops.
So next we've got another montage. There's several montages in this movie, probably just to cut time, I imagine, and move the storyline along. But they're putting the camp back together. The blob is working again. Again, how cool is that damn thing? They start putting the go-karts back together as well. We've got a voiceover with Jerry that says they can do anything, including beat camp MVP in the Apache relay. We think. So we think that they can hang in there, but we're at the climax of the movie. Don't get too excited about the word climax. And we're going to start the relay here. Any thoughts going into this final shot of the movie?
It's so disjointed that the Apache relay would come at the end. Like it seems like maybe there was a good portion of the movie that they cut out, and then they added this on as the ending.
I almost feel like Disney was like, we need a happy ending. They were like, oh, we got a happy ending. It's where, they tell Pat he can take over. And they're like, no, we need you guys flying through the air and beating camp MVP.
I agree completely, because it feels like the movie ends with Tony peeking out of the limousine and being like, and then he would drive off, and Pat's the new owner of the camp. It's like how
Pat.
It's like how Once Upon a Time in Mexico ends, and Antonio Banderas becomes the president of Mexico, just because he killed a bunch of people. And then they add on the Apache relays, which I'm okay with. It just seems so tacked on.
I think they could have done it 20 minutes earlier in the movie.
Agreed.
And made the ending, maybe they keep Tony locked up for the whole race.
Would have made more sense than Parent Day.
Yeah. Anyway, the race starts.
Checking the clock.
The race starts. Camp MVP gets away with a big lead here at the beginning. Obviously, they're going to kill them on the athletic stuff. A loudspeaker says, looks like it's going to be another MVP romp. So they kind of blow through the course. But they start to struggle when they get to the shave the balloon part, which Josh has got that on lockdown. Been shaving for years.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So they start to falter a little bit. Josh starts to catch him up on the balloon. Pat shows Jerry the new cart that he's done a little work to. Put a little work into the motor here. Gonna need this new shiny helmet too. So pretty cool looking go-kart though, I gotta say. That looked like it'd be fun to ride. We get to the Hall of Intelligence, and this is when we see Camp Hope start to catch up. The MVP guy cannot name 5 American vice presidents. Can you?
Joe Biden.
Quayle.
Mike Pence. Stephen Schwartz. Justin Brunson.
You pass. There you go. But in this case, the MVP guy doesn't get it right. And Nicholas catches up and passes him on the presidents and then tells him, you Americans have no sense of history.
And he's right.
We don't. We have no clue.
Well played, Nicholas. You win.
Touche.
Give a kiss.
We've got Pat giving Jerry some tips. Says, be careful, this guy drives dirty. And we've got pretty much a tie going into the last event here. So we see Nicholas skipping in. And Roy tells him not to forget his wings. Take him down, Captain.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
So the wings are back. I love foreshadowing. They all salute Jerry. We're off. Jerry actually gets out to a little bit of an early lead here, but as expected, that guy drives dirty. And he pushes him to the side. Jerry ends up going down a hill, makes a nice recovery. So we start to kind of speed toward the finish line. So coming up, we see Camp Hope is in the lead. The MVP guy cuts him off again. Another dirty move. Pat says he's still behind, but he can't pass. We're in the final stretch. Jerry pushes down the throttle and flies over the top of the camp MVP guy, passing him at the finish line. We have a winner. Camp Hope pulls off the upset, and Pat and Jerry embrace at the finish line. So, I flew, Pat! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! What'd you think of the ending here?
Very Disney.
It's very Disney.
Chitty, bang, bang.
I feel like Judd Apatow had a stack of papers, like the script, and was just like, I'm done with this.
Just rip them up and just walk. Whatever. The check cleared. I do not care.
Mm-hmm. I would love to get his insight on the ending of this movie.
Honestly, honest insight.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the race in all, I guess, is pretty cool. I mean, it's some back and forth, and the good guys win, which is always nice. The camp MVP coach says they're going to file a complaint. Pat says, is this all you're about? Just winning? Tell you what, I'll airmail the trophy back to you. And he gives it to Sims, and he throws it in the water. We see MVP guys chasing after it, including the coach.
Okay, so props to Sims for being an expert hammer thrower all of a sudden.
Yeah.
He's on the wrong side of the camp.
He should have been in high school. He's probably a discus thrower. The way he tosses that thing.
Great form.
Yeah. And the last scene, actually, after that, the MVP coach calls him crazy. He goes, you bet I am crazy about my gal. And he gets the girl. Nice guys win. Go for Pat. And then the last scene is just Jerry thanking Pat for the best damn summer of his life. End of the movie.
Pat told him it's going to be the best damn summer of your life.
Yeah. He didn't lie. You know, all in all, final thoughts on the movie here.
It's definitely, you know, whether anyone says that there was some Disney mumbo jumbo that the movie was misinterpreted or misunderstood, I think from beginning to end, it was well laid out. It was well understood. The writing of the story goes from point A to B to C to D all the way through. It's logical, it makes sense, and it ends in Disney fashion. I give it an A, man. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, other than the ending's a little kabuki for me, but I would also give it an A as well. This is a great movie. I mean, we're not going to do a lot of podcasts of movies that we hate anyway, because we don't want to dislike what we're doing, but...
We're not watching Celtic Pride.
You don't like Celtic Pride?
You son of a bitch.
I love that movie.
Maybe that'll be a good one to cover then. We can do a love-hate on it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get into that in some future episodes. Remember, and we'll wrap this thing up. Thanks for listening to episode 4 of the Back in Time podcast. We had a great time revisiting the heavyweights. Next week, we're jumping back to 1995 again, and we're going to review the comedy movie Major Payne, which is an adventure comedy family movie starring Damon Wayans. Please remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. Again, it's super easy to do. You'll never miss an episode. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/backintimepod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at Back in Time Pod, and all episodes are available on YouTube. But for now, we're out of time. It's time to jump back into our DeLorean, punch in August 28th, 2017, and return back to present day. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.